Hey Sharks, Tom here, and in this video, we're going to be talking about how to figure out what a potential lead's budget is so we can find out, are they a good vertical or prospect for us to be going after, right? So this first side of what's the budget? So how do we know? Now, none of the things we're going to cover here are exact, but they will give you a general idea of what a potential lead or prospect is spending. And I can't stress how important it is to take this into consideration when you're determining and defining your target market. Because, man, for a long time, I did not do this. And I can tell you from experience, if you don't do this, it sucks. I mean, I spent a lot of time investing in potential clients. And if I had just done a couple of few simple calculations and just did a little tiny bit of digging into their business, I would have known right away that it was a lost cause and I would have saved myself a ton of time. Because what will happen if you don't take this into consideration is you're going to get roped into doing jobs for less than you should, and you're going to be aggravated because you're doing all this work and you're not getting paid enough. Or you're going to spend all this time courting a prospect and a client, and you're going to get down the end and you're there, oh, well, we don't have the money for that. And now you've wasted all that time. So really take into consideration what budget these potential prospects that you're going to be hitting have, right? And that's what I'm going to show you how to figure out in this video. So, for example, let's say that we want to get a $1,000 a month client. Let's say we have an SEO service and we charge $9.97 a month for our SEO services, right? So we need to find a vertical that can afford $1,000 a month. So we're going to use a couple of kind of standard numbers in the marketing and advertising industry to figure that out. So the first thing is, kind of a standard for a marketing and advertising budget is 10% of sales. So if you can figure out what the sales are, or you have a way to find out what the sales are of a company, you can kind of guesstimate what they should be spending for their marketing and advertising budget. Now, obviously this isn't exact. Some companies spend less, some companies spend more. And a lot of times you can find this information in like the public records if you do a little searching around, or if you're buying leads, like from Info Free or something, sometimes it'll just be listed in there. So that's what we're going to use as our baseline. So in our example, if we want the client to pay $1,000 a month, then we know that the client needs to be doing a minimum of, preferably more, $10,000 a month, right? Or $120,000 a year. And I say more because we're kind of assuming here that if they were doing $10,000 a month, that they'd be spending their whole budget on whatever it is that we're doing for them. And most of the time that isn't going to be the case. So you're going to want to make sure they're doing more than $10,000 a month or more than $120,000 a year, so that you know that you're not outpricing your service to their budget that should fit within the realm of what they're doing, right? So let's say that you had talked to a client and it looks like it's going to be a really big, as another example, a really big consulting project. Maybe you think it's going to, you want to charge around 25 grand for it. So using the same series, we can figure out, well, what type of a budget would be required for them to be able to afford a $25,000 consulting project. So the client needs to be doing for that more than $250,000 in annual revenue. I put a minimum here, but we really want them to be doing a little more because they're probably not going to be spending all their budget on this, right? So if they're doing more than that, then we know that they're good. But now what if you can't find their annual revenue? Okay, let's say that you've looked everywhere, that you just can't figure out what their sales are each year. So there is kind of a way to guesstimate what the annual sales are for any business. And once again, this isn't exact, but it can just give you a rough idea when you're doing your initial digging. Remember, we're a detective. When we're doing our initial digging on whether a potential lead or prospect is worth pursuing, then this little formula can give you just sort of a general idea. And it goes like this. You take however many employees they have, and first you multiply it by 125,000. Then you multiply it by 200,000, and their yearly revenue is somewhere in between those two numbers. So, for example, if a company had 4 employees, we would multiply 4 times 125,000. That would be 500,000, and then 4 times 200,000, which is 800,000. So their yearly revenue is somewhere between 500,000 and 800,000. Once again, this is a guesstimate. Now, if the business is slow, they're probably on the lower end. If the business is really booming, they're probably on the higher end, maybe making more, right? So based off those numbers, we can figure out what their yearly marketing budget should be, or have a range for it. So their yearly marketing budget, based on $500,000 to $800,000 in sales, should be 10% of those numbers. So in our example, the monthly marketing budget is $50,000 to $80,000. Or no, I'm sorry, that would be the annual. Their yearly budget should be that. So their yearly marketing budget would be $50,000 to $80,000. So now we can break that down into the monthly marketing budget, which would be $4,166.67 or $6,666.67. So you can see, using these numbers, it would be easy to determine, like this, obviously a client doing these type of sales, that it's easily in their budget to do, like if this were the monthly client we were going after, $997 is probably easily within their budget, right? So make sure that when you're, kind of looking into these leads and prospects that you're trying to go out and get, that you're taking into consideration what's their budget and doing your best detective work to try to figure out what that budget is. And we'll talk some more about this as we go through this course. But if you have any questions, please hit me up at the support email, and I will see you in the next video.